It's a misperception that men have learned culturally from those days. You know, the fact that God created man and made man the head of the house does not mean you don't have emotions.
Yeah.
It's just like being a human is simply accepting that I have emotions.
Yeah.
And so the problem normally are not the emotions. The problem is how you manage or regulate those particular emotions.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so quickly and understanding that God created you and I and put emotions within us, and emotions have their place in our life that when you ignore, you don't live life well. So emotions were there as a signal and sensors put within us to be able to help you to know when things are bad and you're supposed to react, but now that reaction is there to help you to be able to have a good life.
Pearl Radio, the home of fresh and classic hits.
Yes, how have you been?
My day was good. I'm well. Thank you for asking.
Yes.
And how have you been?
Me, I've been okay. I've been busy, but the grace is sufficient.
Good to know, my brother. Good to know.
Yeah. So last week we were talking about red flags. In relationship.
Yeah.
And that was a very, very. It was an eye opener.
Oh, okay.
And people really loved that conversation.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. Maybe you can just mention a thing. Maybe someone who missed. I know there's a video. It's already on YouTube.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. No, red flags. Just a red flag, like I mentioned. You driving a car, you at a red, what do you call it? Traffic light. You see the red, it means stop. But in relationships, we have all these red flags, but we ignore them and we keep on having stress because we ignore them. So when you see a red flag, it means that relationship is calling for attention. Something needs to be done. You either get out or you work on it radically. So that's what we spoke about briefly. On your YouTube, it is there.
Yes. Tonight, we get to talk about emotional management.
Emotional management.
So what is emotional management, especially in relationship?
Emotional management. I will also speak about emotional dysregulation. Emotional management simply is being able to just be aware, one, of my emotional dysregularities, and that means the areas where I'm emotional about and once you're aware, then you are able to manage them to be able to live just a good life. So that's that, but I will explain more as we continue.
And even as you talk about being emotional, there is this aspect of men and women, they're kind of different when it comes to emotions. And so maybe you can explain the difference, because we tend to think that men are not supposed to be emotional. Mwanaume ni kukaa ngumu, ukiambiwa it is not working, unakaa ngumu. But for ladies are the ones who are only allowed.
You find that our sisters live longer because they are in touch with their emotions and they speak quite a bit. A sister who keeps quiet, they are very rare. And so them, when they have, something going on in their life, what do? They come over and talk about it and they pour their emotions. But men have been taught this wrong perception to inhibit their emotions. And so they have to kangumu, they have to cut off. And you look at a man stressed and they're not talking, eventually you find that they're on medication, high blood pressure medication. Why? Because they're having things they're not dealing with. It is a wrong place to be, to inhibit your emotion. There's a better way on how to deal with your emotion, and that is what we want to talk about today.
And even as you get ready to talk about it, there has been this trend that has been happening, especially on TikTok and on all the social media platforms. So ladies they're doing these videos called Hey Kababa. So this is just trying to pamper the men, to tell them it's okay to cry, it's okay. I don't know if you came across that.
No, I've not. I'm learning from you.
I think you need to tell Philip.
So you need to tell Philip to teach me more. And so they are trying to help men to be honest and be open with their emotions.
Yes.
Wow, that's a kudos to our sisters, man.
But on the flip side, it might look as if we are, condoning something that men, there is that weak link, So there is that flip side of it.
It's a misperception that men have learned culturally from those days. You know, the fact that God created man and made man the head of the house does not mean you don't have emotions.
Yeah.
It's just like being a human is simply accepting that I have emotions.
Yeah.
And so the problem normally are not the emotions. The problem is how you manage or regulate those particular emotions.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so simply, now let me start with a scripture. In Proverbs 14:17 says, people with a hot temper do foolish things. Wise people remain calm. I think that's a Message Bible.
Yes.
And so quickly and understanding that God created you and I and put emotions within us, and emotions have their place in our life that when you ignore, you don't live life well. And I will show you how. You find that emotion, the freeze is emotion, fight is emotion, emotional response, and what we call freeze, fight, flight. So emotions were there as a signal and sensors put within us to be able to help you to know when things are bad and you're supposed to react. But now that reaction is there to help you to be able to have a good life. Now, we have people who have what we call full anger outburst. That is an emotion that needs to be regulated. Mood swing, you know, they are feeling sad, they feeling anxious, they feel like, you know, crying all the time. You know this. Oh, okay. This is about the sisters community. Crying all the time. At times they use crying to make people, you know, to seek attention. But by the way, you know, also as well, you know, they want to make you feel guilty. Also, if you keep on feeling guilty all the time, that means you're having emotional dysregulation. You're not managing your emotions well. And this is what we want to look at today. Lonely. You feel you're so lonely or you're a loner. That also comes from emotional dysregulation. A person who's not stable emotionally. Apart from that psychological stress, you're always worried, you just feel like you have a headache all the time, and this is one of the things that is very important to be aware of. However, one of the things we have to understand, you see an iceberg in the ocean, what you see floating on top is only 15%. What is under normally is about 85%. Many a time we tend to do a mistake by focusing on the emotions and forget to focus on the underlying issue. The underlying issue is the 85% of your problem, not the emotions. Those emotions have come from somewhere. So if you focus only on how they spoke to me, the way they were angry, you got it all wrong. Because you'll be fighting a losing battle. But if you allow your emotions to take you to the 85%, the foundation, the source of your emotion, the hidden self, then you are able to get the proper solution. I hope that will be clear.
Yes, and even as you talk about, like, because I think in terms of getting to understand the emotions, ladies, they usually assume that we should know the answer. Sometimes they feel bad, and especially sometimes they feel angry, but they expect you to have the gift of the Holy Spirit of discernment. Sometimes they don't even speak out. Unamwambia, mbona uko sad? Kwani wewe hujui? Like, as in, kwani don't understand what I'm going through? And sometimes they expect you to, you know, and they don't really, you know, communicate their feelings. But they expect you as a man to know.
Wow. It is a burden that many a times sisters put, but as well as they expect of us. Now, there's something we need to be aware of. One who keeps quiet and they are afraid to bring their emotions out, there could be a problem that most likely the moment they brought the emotions out, the way it was handled, because emotion are raw, the raw self that is within that is hurting, right?
Yes.
And most likely you do not know how to they don't know how to handle at that particular moment. So the last time they brought it out, the way you handled it matters if they will bring it out or not. 1, 2. If a sister has been emotional before and they explain to you, please listen keenly. Because most likely, like I said, but let me just repeat. There are times use their emotions to manipulate to get what they want.
Yes.
That I know. It's the wrong place to be for a Christian, by the way. When you see tears, lollipop need to come. If you see a moody, you need to bring chips. Not true. That should not be. And that's where communication comes in. You understand?
Yes.
So you don't have to be emotional for you to get what you want. Speak it out. Then, no, this man is not an angel to figure you. Even angels don't know your mind. The Bible is very clear. The spirit of man is only known to a man, and to who? And to his creator. And so it is important not to assume. Very important to speak about what you are going through.
Yeah, and I think that is very important, that you speak about what you're going through. And so I think also the issue even comes in is now identifying now this is the problem.
Good.
Now when you identify that this is the problem, and then how do I handle it?
Good. So that is what now we talk about emotional management, which equally is known in the field as emotional intelligence. Emotional intelligence is the ability to perception, to perceive yourself, and you use that perception to understand what you're going through and manage. It is not as easy as we might think, yet equally no one can figure it out. This is an issue that you can only figure out by yourself. But this is where you sit down to understand, when I behaved the way I behaved, what was triggered within me?
Yes.
And that which was triggered, why was it triggered? Could it be an abuse that I had from a childhood? Could it be that maybe what the person did made me feel lesser? And that is called now number one, awareness. You cannot manage what you do not know.
Yes.
So it all begins by emotional awareness or self-awareness. Then you go to self-management. The problem we always do, number one, we quickly go to social awareness and social management. So we accuse our emotions onto other people, not taking responsibility. A man who's intentional to grow, or a sister intentional to grow, where do they start from? Me. Why am I angry? Why am I sad? Why do I fear? Why am I crying? It's crying, the tears are there, but those tears have limit as well. Why do I feel guilty? Why am I feeling lonely? Why am I? Moment you answer that why, then you become intentional to see, how do I manage what has come up?
Yeah, with the moment we know why. And so first, when you identify this is the reason why I'm feeling this way, because we are not all knowing, we are not God. You need to understand this.
Good.
Especially when ladies, when they're going through a period, maybe I know sometimes those who get pregnant, sometimes they change in emotions, even for those who are going through their period as well. And so one of the things that happen is that they change, and so they expect you to know that this is what I'm struggling with. And so it's very important for you to always communicate.
Yeah, because they expect of you when they're moody for you to understand. Let's go there.
We're talking about the discernment issue.
Yeah.
And so there is someone, actually, I saw this online, someone saying that I expect you to know. And so there is this issue of discernment, that if you don't discern the needs and my emotions, then we are not compatible. So is that true to start with?
Not really. Not, of course, needs that are explained, then ignored, there is a problem.
Yes.
You're not an angel to discern a need that is not explained. That's where we say the power of communication, where you intelligently communicate before the danger moment comes.
Yes.
Our sisters have been gifted with certain challenges that we must acknowledge. They have their monthly, that they go through the monthly periods.
Yes.
And those are moments that are not very, very conducive for them.
Yes.
So they go through certain emotional changes, but being aware And that discernment to know that it is coming requires preparation.
Yes.
Do I need to take medication? This is how I tend to react. This is how I tend to feel. How can I behave in a manner that is acceptable within the community and the environment I live in? That is called emotional management.
Yes.
That is called emotional intelligence. But if you allow any emotions to behave and to react just as you see fit, there is a problem. So there are, like now, rain will rain. And you have no power over rain. But a wise man will go under a roof or take an umbrella if they want to go from one place to another.
Yes.
Equally, in the same way, when rain is coming, that moment is coming. How well do you prepare for it? That is what is called emotional intelligence or emotional management. Being able to do that and protect relationships. Yeah.
Yes, and it's very important that you mentioned that, because there are these people who say that this is me.
Yeah.
Like, as in, this is what I do. Like, as in, you are supposed now to adjust to that. You know, like, as in, they can, because I know there are people who, when they have those emotional changes, sometimes they say that I didn't mean to do this.
Yeah.
And so sometimes they can speak rudely, and they say that maybe I was going through that series. But I think I think one of these funders will need to bring a lady here.
Oh,
so
yeah. So that we can talk about it elaborately.
Yes. So ladies,
like now we're talking about men, maybe we're being a bit insensitive.
Yes.
We might not understand what they go through, and ladies, please forgive us for this.
Yes,
we apologize. But literally, what happens is it important to have that awareness that this is the moment, and this when it comes, and this is how it. Because what happened? They say people who have wonderful emotional intelligence, what happens to them? These people are some of the most successful people. Because if you cannot manage yourself, how will you manage other people? It all begins with who you are, because who you are is what you give to the society. I want you to imagine during that particular time and moment, they have one interview they have to go for. Will they allow their emotions just to go, hey, hi, hey, why? No. They take care of themselves. They go for that interview because that interview matters for them.
Yes.
All of us have the capacity to manage ourselves when we are well aware about what happens. And so it's very important. The other thing that we must also be careful about, or rather, is knowing the seasons, because all of us have our seasons and the triggers.
The triggers.
What are those triggers that when they happen, and when they happen, how do I tend to behave? Knowing those triggers are very important. After you've known them, as we spoke a while ago, then your core value must be very important. The environment within you operate must be very important, because if you're aware, these are my desired values, and now I feel otherwise. But the fact that I feel otherwise, I'm at a place of work with my bosses and my workmates. What is expected of me? What are some of the policies that have been laid down here? Because you go against the policy, what will happen to you? You lose your job. True. So there are people who have lost their relationships. There are people who have lost their jobs because they say, take me or leave me. At the end of it all, what if they applied emotional intelligence? What if they applied the emotional self-awareness and then they apply management? What would happen? They succeed in life. So it's very, very, very important. You know, having a car, and you take that key, you put in the ignition. After that, what will happen? The moment you put the car in the ignition, if you're a good driver, you'll drive well.
Of course.
But if you're distracted, what will happen to you? It leads to your death.
Yes.
God has given you a life. The moment you are given birth to, He gave you the full life. He gave you the ignition. That ignition to start your life every morning you wake up. Being a good driver of your life is simply having a clear understanding. My car does not have a puncture here. What do? I need to take and add a little bit of air into it. In the same way, I have my life. My life has challenges. I need to make adjustments to be able to live well.
Yeah.
You're getting?
Yeah.
And living well, what does it mean? Jesus Christ says very well, you cannot claim to love God if you don't love your brother.
True.
So if I myself behave as I see fit, but yet my behavior is affecting people around me negatively, there's a problem. So I need to regulate that. So awareness is where it begins from. Before you do that, that's awareness is very important.
And allow me just, let us stick on that point, because we have mentioned about triggers.
Good.
And triggers, sometimes you cannot control them. Yeah. Sometimes they happen because maybe someone who maybe had an accident, or maybe so when they see something, it triggers them, or maybe someone who was in hospital, and so maybe they see a particular scene, and then it it triggers the emotion, and then they are coming back to that place. And it's very important that we mention that we need to manage that, because I've been in this driver's seat on this platform, and I usually on Thursdays I usually bring guys to share their stories, their testimonies, things that they struggle with, and so sometimes they can mention things that they trigger the things that I have gone through,
that you've gone
through. The things that I maybe I was struggling with, and so they can take me way back. But now, because of that professionalism,
you're working, you're employed. So if you don't do anything according to the profession, what happens?
Yes, I will to Israel, go home.
So we have the capacity
of controlling what
of our
we
emotions. Have it. That as a man thinketh, so he is.
Yes.
If you have a self-defeating belief that I'm not able, that is how you're going to lead your life. And some of the lies that we've built over the years that we are not able, we don't have the capacity, is what cripples us. I want to give you a story. I read about a guy. This was a wonderful, powerful, successful salesman. And in the U.S., a story came from the U.S., they would go from door to door to go knock doors. They ring a bell. They don't knock door there. They ring bells. So unfortunately, he went into this house that had nobody, and they rang the bell, and the house bursted into flames. Why? Because in the house, the gas was leaking. And when he rang the bell, what did the bell do? It caused that fire, and that's what happened. Now he went back. He was treated, but what happened? He got completely afraid of ringing bells. He lost his job. That's what happened. He lost his job. What if he chose to accept that I have been dented? I am not well. I need help. And then he went for help. He went for therapy. He would have gone back to his business. True. You understand? So some of these things, some of the emotions we ignore and we accept them and we behave as we see fit, they end up short-circuiting the life we need to live. They end up, because what happened? You end up losing relationships. Who wants to be around an emotional person all the time? If your friends have known that during this period and this period, this particular person is a danger to be around.
Yeah, they will run away, of course.
What if that particular period was a period when someone was supposed to engage you? Are you getting?
Yes.
That engagement goes callous. What if this particular boyfriend did not know what you were going through and you are not able to manage it, and because of that you spoke this particular word that triggered him, and yet in his pocket he had an engagement ring? Will he engage you?
No.
So lack of emotional intelligence, emotional management is more disastrous than we ever know. And that is why there are some key important questions to ask yourself. One of them, what am I feeling? What am I feeling? Why am I feeling the way I'm feeling? You're simply beginning to question your emotions, because the answers can only be replied by you. And you take a journal, you take a paper and write. How often do I always feel this? And at what point of or period of the month or period or at what moment of my hours do I feel this way? And you journal it down. Then number 2, how can I manage these feelings? Now, the management of those feelings must be in relationship, number 1, with your core belief system. The Bible says, do not become angry, or do not let the sun go while you're still angry with your your brother. And so you go back. If the Bible is a foundation, the core from which you choose all your decisions, then you go back. How I'm feeling and what I'm bound or about or what I've done before, what does the Bible say about it? Then you go back. You're getting. So you're beginning to regulate yourself, manage yourself. And then once you do that, then you go back. Good. I'm a human being. I'm not living in an island. I live with people. In our secular, in our society, in the environment. Is it at workplace, at home? What am I expected and how am I expected to respond or to react? Tonight I'm going for a meeting. What is expected of me? I am going to meet my friend. What is expected of that environment? You find people who go for meetings or they go for an environment or party and they end up spoiling the entire party because they're not able to manage their emotions. That party, the memory that remains in people's mind is what you did that made the party. So emotional intelligence is not something to joke around with. Or emotional management is not. And so as you continue with that, then you got to go back and understand there is one thing you cannot cut shortcut with. The power of education is significantly important for emotional management. My people perish for lack of knowledge. So in this situation, what do I need to do? If you need to take medicine, take medication. However, I always tell people, don't take medication for all the emotions. Because there are people now who take medication, and as you continue having those emotions because they're not able to regulate it, what happens with you? You take medication, and that is how addiction comes. And the moment you're addicted, your body system, the way naturally God created you for it to run, stops running. So your body becomes acclimatized to medication, getting used to medication, and that is where your systems. Now you become addicted. Without the medication, you become anxious. Where's my medicine? You've seen people who normally are addicted.
They even shake like
man. The time they don't have that medication, they will borrow money to go buy, and that's what happened. It's important. So emotional intelligence, emotional management is not something to play around with. Then when you finish from self, then you have to go back, then you go to social. Social now are the people around you. You have the capacity as well to manage people's emotions.
Wow.
You have it.
And I think that is so heavy because sometimes we take these things for granted and we take them lightly, but they can play a big role, especially even in your place of work, even in your future marriage. Hallelujah.
No. First of all, my Instagram is coach.owidi, and then my website where you'll get all the details is coachowidi.org. My telephone number is 0724994066. And today I was reminded to tell my listeners one thing. I meet people for life coaching and for counseling, and the first session normally is pro bono. So if you want to take advantage of it, please reach out. I'll give you the pro bono service. Thereafter, I'll get to know whether you are fit to be a client or not.
Wow.
Thank you.
Amazing. Make sure you get in touch with Charles Owidi.
96.9 FM, Pearl Radio.